In the high-stakes corporate boardroom architecture of the modern NBA, building a championship roster is generally supposed to function as a slow, patient game of incremental growth, right? You draft potential, you carefully manage the league's incredibly strict salary cap rules, like that notoriously restrictive luxury tax apron we always hear about, and you wait for those smaller contract exceptions to slowly fortify your rotation. But every so often, an executive window just flies wide open, and all that conventional patience is violently thrown out the window. Last night, while the casual sports world was literally sleeping, the NBA landscape didn't just shift, it completely fractured. We're talking about a massive, staggering three-team blockbuster trade executed in the dead of night. So let's dive into this explainer and unpack exactly what just went down.
Here's the official breaking news from Shams Charania that sent front offices everywhere into an absolute frenzy. Quote, breaking. The Oklahoma City Thunder trading all defensive wing Lou Dort to the Atlanta Hawks in a three-team deal that sends 3 second-round picks to OKC, former #1 pick Zachary Reschacher to the Dallas Mavericks, and Ryan Nembhard to Atlanta, sources tell ESPN. Guys, this is the exact kind of notification that wakes up general managers in a cold sweat. It's a deal that completely shatters the current balance of power across the entire league.
And just like that, boom, the trade banner was approved. The transaction successfully cleared league logging protocols, and it sent massive shockwaves all the way from Boston to Los Angeles. Defensive mastermind Lou Dort has been systematically shipped out. A former #1 overall pick is changing area codes just 2 short years into his career, and draft capital is absolutely flying all over the place. The power dynamic out in the Western Conference is officially on fire. This is the inside story of the night a three-team trade bomb broke the NBA. Okay, Section 1, the transaction matrix. To really comprehend the sheer structural audacity of a deal like this, we have to look directly at the microscopic financial engineering it required. Multi-team trades are never as simple as just swapping a few guys around. It is a highly complex puzzle of salaries, exceptions, and future assets. So the big question is, how exactly did the asset capital actually flow among these three rival front offices?
Well, looking at the sheer scale of the asset dashboard mapped out across the league, it breaks down like this. Atlanta wanted a definitive, culture-setting defensive perimeter specialist, and they found their absolute answer by paying a premium to land Lou Dort along with Ryan Nembhard. Oklahoma City, operating on a completely different strategy, recoups 3 second-round draft picks to restock their war room. But then there's Dallas. Dallas jumps right into the trading loop, leveraging their unique situation to execute an absolute narrative heist, pulling in Zachary Reschacher and a second-round pick.
Which brings us to Section 2, Dallas and the generational heist.
As Atlanta was busy locking in their primary defensive target, Nico Harrison and the Dallas front office saw an incredibly rare opportunity to hijack the transaction matrix. They didn't just add some end-of-the-bench rotational wing, they weaponized an existing transaction to pluck a highly coveted former #1 pick right off the trade block on a super low-risk swing. Front offices across the league are furious about this, and the way they pulled it off? A trade exception. For those who don't live and breathe the NBA collective bargaining agreement, a trade exception basically allows a team to absorb a newly acquired player's salary without sending out matching money. It's a financial magic trick. Dallas was able to absorb Reschacher's $13.8 million salary for the 2026-27 season by using a $20.8 million trade exception they had left over from a previous Anthony Davis trade. Just a brilliant maneuver to add premium talent without sacrificing any major assets of their own.
All right, Section 3. Reschacher's advanced telemetry.
Now you might be wondering, why was a former #1 overall pick even available in the first place? To understand that, we need to look at the specific performance telemetry of this 21-year-old, 6'8" French star and why his on-court value recently fluctuated over in Atlanta. It all comes down to context. When the Hawks originally drafted Reschacher, Trae Young was the undisputed center of that franchise, carrying this massive half-court playmaking load. In that specific system, Reschacher excelled as a shooter and a cutter playing completely off the ball. But when Trae Young was moved, the Hawks desperately needed more primary ball handlers and shot creators. Suddenly, Reschacher was forced into a role that just didn't match his current strengths, and he really struggled. He was essentially a square peg forced into a round hole.
And the hard data absolutely backs this up. His scoring average dropped from a solid 12.6 points per game in his highly productive rookie season down to 9.6 points in his sophomore year. As his role changed, his production inevitably dipped. This is exactly why Atlanta's head coach, Quinn Snyder, eventually phased him out of the starting five, opting to start CJ McCollum instead to try and get better immediate results. Honestly, Reschacher just fell victim to the cold business side of a changing roster context.
But look at exactly what Dallas is getting here. At his size, Risacher represents the absolute archetype of the modern positionless forward. Defensively, his length acts like a literal human net, compressing driving corridors and seamlessly switching across positions. Offensively, he is the perfect off-ball fit. I mean, playing in the massive gravitational pull of Luka Doncic, Risacher is going to be gifted wide-open spot-up vectors on a nightly basis. Plus, at just 21 years old, he aligns absolutely perfectly with the developmental timeline of their other young talent like Cooper Flagg. It's a match made in heaven.
Moving to Section 4, Atlanta's perimeter defensive wall.
So, why was Atlanta so willing to cut bait on a recent #1 overall pick just 2 years into his NBA career? Very simply, they wanted Lou Dort. Dort is a complete physical anomaly. We're talking about a 27-year-old undrafted success story out of Arizona State who blossomed into an all-defensive first-team enforcer. He shoots a very respectable 34.4% from 3 on solid volume, but what he really brings is extreme toughness and physicality. This barrel-chested Montreal native provides a proven, rock-solid defensive anchor that Atlanta completely lacked last season. Sure, he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2026-27, but right now, today, he is exactly the culture setter that locker room needed.
Coach Quinn Snyder has essentially constructed a truly fearsome new defensive perimeter rotation. By adding Dort right alongside Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they've built this massive, length-heavy defensive grid. It completely insulates their backcourt, stifles opposing point-of-attack guards, and allows them to properly build their foundation around Jalen Johnson. It's a complete identity shift for the Hawks.
Section 5, OKC's Financial Disappearing Act.
Which brings us to the final mastermind of this trade, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, while they gave up a phenomenal defender who actively helped them win a championship, what they achieved on the balance sheet is just as significant. Look at this number, $323 million. That is the staggering volume of projected payroll that the Thunder have managed to shed by moving Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, and Aaron Wiggins this offseason. It is an absolute masterclass in cap management.
To put that into perspective, before this trade, OKC was staring down the barrel of a massive $557 million projected payroll, just wildly unsustainable. But by moving Dort in the specific 3-team deal, they are now officially operating safely under the restrictive second luxury tax apron, a threshold that, if crossed, severely restricts a team's ability to make trades and sign players. So, they successfully navigated the financial fair play of the new CBA, maintained their status as a championship contender, avoided massive future tax penalties, and somehow picked up 7 second-round picks overall this summer. Incredibly shrewd asset management.
And finally, Section 6, the new Western Conference.
The immense tactical ripple effects of this midnight blockbuster are going to be felt by the rest of the league for seasons to come. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How will opposing defenses solve the impossible mathematical dilemma of this newly formed Dallas offensive matrix? Think about it for a second. If opposing defensive blocks collapse into the paint to double-team Luka Doncic, a lethal 6'8" shooter in Zachary Risacher is just waiting in the corner slot to punish them from deep. But actually, if they stay home on the perimeter to mark the wings, Luka will systematically pick them apart in single coverage. It's a terrifying, almost impossible choice for the rest of the NBA. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing the game and stay curious.